Hey there, and welcome back to another week on YouTube, learning all the best legal tips for your online business. So I have to apologize to you already in advance today because I have been so sick for the past couple of weeks and I am just starting to get better. My voice is mostly better. I will admit that it was a lot worse a couple of days ago. So I am so happy to be back with you talking today about how to get more clients as a coach, whether you're new or you're just not super happy with the number of clients that you have in your business. Today, I'm going to teach you 3 ways that you can get more clients as a coach in your business without any spammy Instagram tactics, spending too much time on your phone, or buying anybody's course. So let's go sit down and chat. In case you're new here, I'm Vander Wielen. I'm an attorney turned entrepreneur who helps online coaches, course creators, and service providers learn how to legally protect and grow your online business using my DIY legal templates, my ultimate bundle program, and new videos and trainings here each week on YouTube. If you don't already, make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel so you can learn the freshest legal tips for your online business. So in this video today, I'm going to teach you 3 things to do as a coach to get more clients for your online business, or you could use these tips even for in-person clients too. These are not only things that I used to do, right? So before I started my legal templates business, after I became an attorney, I left in 2016 and I actually started my own health coaching business. And, I felt super overwhelmed by social media. I felt super behind, right? There were so many people already in the health and wellness coaching space, and I didn't know where to start. So I actually took a little bit different of an approach. Yes, I was on social media, of course, but I also did stuff that I'm going to teach you today. All right, let's kick things off with tip number 1. Let's start off with a Scrappy email list. What do I mean by that? I mean that we have got to maximize, we've got to squeeze all of the fresh juice out of that email list, whether you have 5 people on it, 50, 500, 5,000, it doesn't matter, right? So whenever we talk about using an email list in order to find more clients online, a lot of times people will say, but I don't really have anybody on my email list. And if I could give you any tip, it's that we first have to shift our mindset that we're not going to start out with a huge email list yet, right? Not yet. Eventually we will. But it took me years and years to build up to like thousands and thousands and thousands of people on my email list. At first I was writing to, honestly, probably mostly my friends and family at very first, right? But then after implementing a couple of the tips I'm going to teach you today, I was adding on a handful of people at a time, right? Every month. So whether that was like 5 people or a dozen people, that's still people, right? There are people that are getting onto your email list. And I know that it might feel like, yeah, it's easy for you to say when you're sitting there and now you've got all of these people on your email list. But I remember a time when I didn't, right? It wasn't that long ago. And I wrote to my email list like there were a lot of people there, right? So I was anticipating it. I was getting used to it. And frankly, I would tell you that now is a great time to start getting used to using your voice, finding your writing voice, right? Learning how to be more vulnerable and open with your email list, depending on what you're writing about. I talk about legal templates. I'm still vulnerable with my email list. But I would encourage you to use this time when there aren't a ton of people watching to hone that skill, right? Sharpen that craft, because when there are a lot of people, I can tell you that it was a lot easier for me to write to my email list when there were fewer people on it. Whereas now I will sometimes feel the pressure, honestly, of wow, I'm writing to so many people. What are people going to think? Is this helpful? Is somebody going to say something mean? Somebody going to judge me? So use this as an opportunity to improve the skill, because this skill is going to be one that you're going to use now and years from now in your business. As you're building your email list, I just want you to get into the habit of using your email list almost as a call to action in the very beginning when you're really trying to build it. So if somebody reaches out and they ask you a question, or you go to an in-person event and they find out what you do and they seem interested, you can ask them hey, would you like to sign up for my email list? I email each week about this topic, right? I think what you want to get really comfortable doing is just kind of having it as this reflex that you go back to all the time, asking people if they'd like to be on your email list, if they express pretty much any sort of interest, but also having a quick little elevator pitch about what exactly are they getting out of being on your email list, right? So you don't want to say, hey, you want to be on my newsletter? What does that mean? Maybe your newsletter is amazing, right? It's possible that I get a ton of value out of your newsletter. But I need to know when you're asking me if I want to get yet another email because my inbox is full of these already, right? What am I going to get about it? So like, do you want to join my email list? Because each week I send out a bunch of new recipes and I share the top 5 nutritional tips for that week, or I don't know, whatever it is that you talk about, right? And you really want to tie it in. Like I remember doing this in the beginning. I always tied it into what somebody had reached out and asked me about. So for example, if somebody had reached out and said to me, I'm feeling really overwhelmed about how to legally protect my online business. What do I do, right? I would say, hey, at that point, I didn't have a freebie or anything like this. I would say, hey, I actually send out legal tips for online business owners every week in my newsletter. Would you like me to add you to my email list so that every week you learn about a different topic about how to legally protect your business, right? So I'm telling them what the benefit to them is going to be from joining my email list, right? I also think that people forget when they're not like in the biz and they're not in online business that most people don't even really know what an email list or maybe even like what an email newsletter is, right? So when I was an attorney, I don't think I really even understood what an email list was at that time. Now this is all second nature to me, but we just want to remember that that's not what we're pitching. We're not pitching for them to receive our newsletter. We're pitching them to receive our newsletter that's full of tips that are going to help them do X, Y, and Z. So we want to communicate that really clearly to them to make it actually enticing for them to get on our email list. Okay, so now you might be thinking like, great, so you're telling me how to get more clients and you're telling me to build an email list, even if it's scrappy in the beginning, how does that get me more clients? Well, first of all, the email list is where you're going to learn your voice, to start talking about not only your expertise, but also whatever your offer is, right? So we are going to build this as a real foundational marketing point in your business where you're starting to establish probably the deepest connection with people inside of your business through your email list, because it's not really social media, right? Social media is very busy, it's loud, people are consuming things in bite-sized chunks. But when it comes to our email list, we can really like get people's attention with this email, right? They're sitting down, they're just reading your email. They should be. They're not reading like 100 other emails or seeing advertisements flash up or like being prompted to watch the next video like you are on right now on YouTube. There are just a bunch of differences when it comes to consumption, right? People who also like to read your newsletter tend to be a little bit different of a consumer. Like I feel like the people who are on my email list, some of them have been on there for 5 or 6 years. They read every word that I write. They're engaged. They respond back, right? I don't even know if those people follow me on social media, and I don't tend to hear from the same people on social media that I would through my email list. So I think we're just talking to a different consumer and we're starting to develop a deeper relationship with these people so that they know, like, and trust you and therefore want to buy from you down the line. The other thing though, that we are starting to practice with our email list is actually talking about you and what you do, right? So I see this so often. I call this the how can I pay you money effect. Sometimes I hear people talk about their expertise a lot, or I hear them tell personal stories or share cute pictures of their kids and their dog, guilty. But I don't always understand how I can pay them money, right? So I think on your email list, this is a great time for you to start getting in the habit of writing to your email list subscribers and talking about what it is exactly that you're doing behind the scenes that you're getting paid money for. So what's going on inside your group program? How's your course going? What's something that you just like accomplished with a client or a result that your client just got? Can you turn that into a story and a lesson and share that with your email list subscribers? That is a great way not only to provide value to them, but then also be like, oh yeah, she has that program that's about X, Y, and Z. So when X, Y, and Z comes up for me and I know I want to accomplish that, I know who to call, right? So that's what we're starting to do with our email list. Overall, you want to remember that each email, each week, and please, please, please email them once per week at least. I have emailed my email list every single week since 2016 without skipping a week ever, right? So please email them once a week, and please make sure that those emails to your email list are full of value, right? Yes, you can make it about yourself. Yes, you could tell a story about something that happened to you, but you always want to parlay that into something about how this affects them, right? How is this useful to them? Why should they really care? Who cares about this story, right? So usually the way that I like to approach this is that if my brain tends to convert everything that I see anyway. So if something funny happens to me when I'm out and about, I usually think like, oh, that's just how this happens in online business, or that's just like this legal thing that comes up, or this is just like that thing that I know that my ideal clients worry about, right? So I will tell that story in the beginning of an email about something that had happened, right? Like I told a story a couple of weeks ago on my email list about how I was at Whole Foods and I ran into a former lawyer colleague of mine, and how I was so freaked out to run into him because I was afraid of all of the judgment I was going to get from him and what he was going to ask me about, like, oh, how's it going? Like thinking that it was like sad that I left the law. Which it hasn't been, by the way. It's been very much the opposite. But I was so scared about running into him because of that judgment. And I realized when I ultimately did run into him, and he was very kind and nice about what I was doing now, that in fact, I had just been judging myself, right? I was worried about what people would think of me because at that time, I wasn't super confident in it, right? And then I parlay that story into like, what does that have to do with building your online business? Well, it actually has to do more with how we feel about ourselves and how confident we are in ourselves, not all these external metrics that we're always chasing after, right? And I turned it into a lesson to them about what they really should be focused on. Ultimately, the call to action was actually that I recorded a podcast episode on my podcast On Your Terms about who it really matters, like that believes in our business, right? I can link that below in case you want to listen to it. But my point is that like you can tell stories and share stories as long as ultimately they have some sort of lesson that's valuable to your ideal client, right? And so I think that that's a great bridge and a great way to like start to build that connection where you're sharing something personal about yourself. In doing so, you can tell like a couple of little key facts or parts of your story, right? But then we're transitioning that into like, how is this helpful to them? How can they apply this to their own life, business, relationships, finances, whatever it is? Now, ultimately, we're going to work on building out this circle with your email list where, if you don't already, my goal for you would be that you have some sort of freebie, something that they really want, something that's really helpful, gives them a quick win, full of value, speaks to your ideal client, makes sense based on what you do and how you work with people. And that's what we would be using to get new people onto your email list. Then you would continue emailing them like I've been talking about. You'd be talking about your program and your offer, and you'd actually be asking for the sale, right? You'd be letting them know how they can join, how they can buy, how they can take the next step with you, whatever. And so we would build out this nice circle of people coming in thanks to your new freebie, you nurturing them every single week on your email list, and then you talking about making your offer, making your pitch, and actually getting new clients out of your email list, no matter how many people are on it. All right, so tip number 2 about how to get new clients as a coach is I feel like just an underlooked area, a place to build your business if you want to have primarily a virtual or online business. I think that for some reason people will think that if you have a virtual business or like you want to see all of your clients virtually, that means that you also have to market your business entirely virtually. In my experience, that's not only not true, but it's not a great way because of how, difficult it is to get things off the ground in the beginning, especially in a crowded market, right? If you have a lot of other people who are doing what you do. So that's why I'm a big fan of integrating some community or in-person events. When I was a health coach, I actually used to host workshops in person at a local plant-based cafe. So it was kind of like a cool place to hang out. People would just like meet there, get coffee and smoothies. People would eat. But at night, they had a lot more availability and space. So I approached the owner and asked her if I could host some live workshops in her space. The cool thing about this was that I would advertise that I was hosting these workshops to people on my own social media. And then I would segment my email list to email people who were just local to me within like 50 miles of where I was hosting these workshops. And you can do that with ConvertKit, by the way, which I highly recommend. I'll leave a free trial link below. And then also the business owner, she would advertise it also because it was a great value add for her to add to her customers. And it brought in people who then would buy food and drink at a time when dinner wasn't her busiest time. Lunch tended to be busier for them. So it was a win-win for everybody. And, in the beginning, she was actually pulling in many more people. She had a more robust social media and email list, and she was pulling in more people to come to attend. These people who attended this workshop were not only the bulk of the first however many of my email list subscribers, because of a tip I'll give you in a sec, but they were also many of my first clients. And some of them have even remained to just be my friends and people that I connected with early on. They were also like collaborative partners. So this is a great way to build your business and to build community, to meet other business owners near you. It's an underrated strategy, I think. So, off the top of my head, I can just think of like going to those kinds of places, like cafe type places, coffee shops. You can contact the local library. A lot of time they actually want people to offer classes. There are schools and like community colleges. There are all kinds of places that you could go. I always recommend to my customers too to just think about like where else your ideal client hangs out, right? So maybe they hang out at like a coffee shop or a gym or something like that, right? So you could contact them and ask if you could give these kinds of talks. And like everything in business, you have to pitch it as like, how is this valuable to them? So just like when I went to go to that cafe, that plant-based cafe, I pitched it to her that this was going to draw in new people, right? That I was going to contact on her behalf for her for free. And then also that this was going to bring in maybe some of her customers at night. And that this was just a free, valuable workshop, something that she could offer to her customers that was related to the kind of like lifestyle and vibe that she was trying to give off. So it was just a win-win overall. Okay, before we move on to tip number 3, I just have to tell you, and I think I have this upstairs somewhere, but I'm not going to go get it. When you have these kinds of workshops in person, I want you to set out a little sheet, a sign-in sheet for people, and have a box on that sign-in sheet that asks them if they want to be added to your email list. So I think that after I added like my friends and my family and a bunch of other people, I just was like, hey, you want to be on my email list? These people who came to these workshops, I hosted like 6 of these workshops, and they got bigger and bigger every time. Those people became the bulk of my like organic subscribers in the beginning. And I still remember them responding to my emails and saying, hey, I just sent this to my friend because I think she might be interested in it. And maybe their friend lived 1,000 miles away, but they knew that I was writing to my email list and building an online business. So they sent my stuff to them anyway. And it really did start to grow and spider. It gave me a little bit more legitimacy in social media as well to be able to share that I was hosting these workshops, share the behind the scenes, break down some of the tips that I shared at these workshops. That then drew new people out to the workshop the next time I hosted it. So I think it's just a good way to get the ball rolling. You have to tell me below, have you ever hosted something live in person, even if you want to have a completely online and virtual business? Have you ever tried that before? Have you thought about it? Are you going to try it? Let me know in the comments below. So the third way to find new clients for your online coaching business is to pick a platform and stick to it for at least 90 days. So whether that's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever you want to do. If it were my preference, I would get you to pick something more like YouTube and using social media just to like supplement and let people know about that. But if you were going to pick something like YouTube or a podcast or obviously blogging as well, that would be an even better option because that kind of content's going to work for you for a long time. Either way, though, the point and the reason I wanted to talk over this tip in particular with you is because we want to pick a platform that we feel really excited about showing up on, right? So if you pick something that you're like, I am dreading that, I don't want to be on camera, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, then you don't have to do that one, right? So stop assigning all of these like shoulds to stuff and saying like, I should be on Instagram because it's huge, or I should be on TikTok because it's blowing up. You don't have to worry about that. I would really just worry about where you really like, where you're going to feel naturally comfortable and confident in showing up. Doesn't mean you have to be 100%. You can get better, I swear. But you want to pick that. Obviously, we want to make sure that your ideal client hangs out there as well, right? And we also want to make sure that that content platform makes sense for whatever you're doing. So maybe you want to consider if your like way of presenting content is more visual, or you need to have visual versus don't need to have visual, right? If you need video, don't need video, all that kind of stuff would be something that I personally would take into consideration. But more than anything, I just want to make sure that you're creating content that's actually geared towards them, right? So if you're looking for a way to get more clients and you especially are feeling like, I've already been posting, I don't really understand like why nothing's happening. First of all, I would encourage you to think about quality content over quantity content, right? So it's not about how much you're posting or how often you're posting or anything like that. It's about the quality of the content that you are posting, that you're posting it in the right places, and then that the content is actually geared towards the people who you're trying to attract, right? Are you giving them any reason to engage? Are you giving them an obvious next step, a call to action? Is the content itself geared towards what they are struggling with and what they want to solve? Are you giving them a helpful tip that they're actually struggling with? I think these are all pretty basic questions to just take a look at when we're coming up with our very first social media strategy and figuring out how to attract our ideal clients. I think often people pick too many platforms, put out too much content, have the content not necessarily speak to their ideal client. It tends to be more about us, or it's just like very basic, like tip oriented, but then it's not engaging and like emotionally connecting with the people who are consuming it. And then they don't stick to it long enough. That's the last problem that I tend to see. So a lot of times people will say, hey, I've tried this for a month, it's not working. It could be your strategy, right? But it could also be that you're not trying it long enough. So I know within my own business, we really try to do something for at least 90 days, if not like 6 months, to see if something's working. And we make adjustments. I track all the data, all the things, and we make adjustments along the way. If something's not working, if I don't like it, if it doesn't feel right, all that kind of stuff. But overall, the idea is like, I'm not going to put out 2 YouTube videos and then say, nobody watched this and then quit, right? We have to stick to it for a long time. We have to stop making our results about them all the time, right? People will say, I've been posting all the time, nobody's engaging, therefore no one cares about this and I'm quitting. Well, it could be you, right? So it could be you. And I know that's hard. And I have to do this myself all the time, right? To be like, maybe this episode wasn't that helpful. Maybe the title wasn't very good, right? Maybe the visuals weren't that great. Maybe I didn't explain it in a way because I'm not really speaking their language. Maybe this is really not that big of a problem that my ideal client faces or that they think that they face. It's just one that I think that they should, right? And we have to be very careful about that, being the experts in whatever we do. We oftentimes will make something very important or necessary because we know that, but that's not necessarily what our ideal client's searching for or what they're looking at on social media, right? So if you're feeling frustrated, I would encourage you to leave a comment below. If there's something specific, you're like, this isn't working on social media, I'm happy to dive in and talk to you about it. But overall, I think we tend to blame this on other people sometimes or on the algorithm or whatever else. And it really can be us. Or it could be a matter of time that we are not being consistent for long enough, right? So we want to take a look at that. Okay, before we go today, a little bonus tip that I have for you. I think that one of the best things I ever did for my online coaching business and what ultimately led to me getting a lot more clients was stopping following other people who did what I did. Not because you don't support them, not because you're a nice person or not a nice person or any of that kind of stuff, right? It is nothing to do with them and everything to do with you keeping your head down and your eyes on the prize. One of the biggest mistakes that I see when people are starting out and trying to build their online coaching business is that they end up surrounding themselves with just a lot of other people who do what they do. And it puts you in consumption mode instead of creator mode. And there are legal issues I see from that, right? That people then get like really nervous that they're not creating original content. They're nervous that they learned something from somebody else, all that. But it also sends you down this like really bad mindset spiral path where you're like, well, there's already people doing this. This is not important. So like clearly if somebody wants help with it, they're going to go to this person. And honestly, we just have to stop consuming other people's content. I mean, period, whether they do what you do or not. But I see this a lot in the coaching industry where people just start off by following and consuming a lot of content from a lot of other people who do exactly what they do. And I think it's really important for your mental and emotional health, but also the health of your business and your ability to attract clients for you to get rid of all of that stuff and do your own thing, right? March to the beat of your own drum. Do not look at what they're doing. It will help you legally, and it will help you from a creative perspective to be able to actually create without constantly worrying whether you're copying somebody else, either on purpose or by accident, or whether or not there's need for you or what you're saying is important enough. You're not even going to think about that because you're not going to know what other people are saying. I think that one of the best things that I ever did for my business was, when I started my legal business, I never even started consuming other people's content who did what I did. There were barely anybody at that time who was doing it, but I never went down that path. I don't look now. I see people mimic, copy me all the time. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm not looking, right? I send stuff to lawyers and I get out of the way because I just want to make sure that I keep my head clear and I create based on what's best for my ideal client, not based on my reaction to what other people are or are not doing. And I think that's what's gotten me a lot of customers over the past 5-6 years. So I hope that these tips were helpful. Let me know in the comments below whether tip number 1, 2, or 3 was helpful to you. I'm so curious to hear what you think. And before you go, if you liked this video, then actually like this video here on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. I am so glad that you spent a couple minutes of your day here with me today, and I can't wait to chat with you next week.